There's a whole bunch of games on the Switch that I've really been looking forward to, and up at the top of that list is Gato Roboto. Now, I'm going to say Gato Roboto from now on because it's quicker. I'm sure some people are going to be annoyed with how I'm saying it, but I'm going with Gato Roboto. I've really been looking forward to it because, I mean, it's a Metroid style game and it's got a cat. What more could you want? And I spent the last few days playing it, and it's even better than I was hoping it would be. It's pretty fantastic. To tell you the truth, it's one of my favorite games on Switch. The game starts out in a spaceship where you see a cat jump up on a control panel, which causes the ship to crash, and the human pilot of the ship is hurt, so he can't get out of the ship, and he sends his cat Kiki out to find a mech suit and help save him. So that's the beginning of the story. That's not spoiler, you see that right away. But there's a lot more to the story than that, and some elements are off the beaten path for you to find, so you may end up missing out on some elements of the story if you're not looking for them. And as with any Metroidvania, which is what this is, or a Meowtroidvania, you're supposed to explore, and you'll see little things on the map that you're like, oh, I wonder how I get there. It's fairly straightforward, more so than your average Metroidvania, which it didn't bother me at all. There's still plenty to explore on the map, but there are some times when you're gonna scratch your head trying to figure out how to get into a certain room or something, which will have a story element or a health upgrade or something else along those lines. So not as much exploration as you typically expect in a Metroidvania, but it really didn't bother me. This game really does play a lot like Metroid. You go around and collect power-ups and gain new abilities, and they give you access to new areas. It's not so much that you get a new weapon and that allows you to access another spot, but that does happen. But there's other things where you're blowing up certain enemies that'll like cool down an area and allow you to explore somewhere that was too hot, or going around in portions of the ship where you're just playing as the cat outside of the mech suit because the mech can't fit into the area, and you have to navigate these deadly paths because the cat doesn't have any way of attacking on its own. You just have to avoid enemies and get from room to room. But then you'll gain access to something else, which will get you your suit back, and then you'll gain a new ability for the suit that'll let you jump higher or shoot more missiles or whatever it may be. So there's certainly a lot of ties to Metroid here, the 2D style Metroid, obviously. And if you like that style of Metroidvania or just Metroid in general, then you're really gonna like this game. The one thing I really liked about Gato Roboto is that it just feels so good. Everything you do feels good. The controls feel fantastic. Everything has a certain level of like oomph to it. The way you maneuver, the way you shoot things, the way you recoil when you get hit, it just, I don't know, there's something so satisfying about all of it. And it really makes a much more enjoyable experience altogether. It's just fun to play. That's all I could think of while I was going through the game, is just how much fun it is. Just everything clicks, and you can tell so much care was put into every little nook and cranny of the game. It's just so satisfying and enjoyable to run through the game. Now, Gato Roboto uses two-tone graphics, and some of you might worry that that'll lead to some confusion between areas and getting lost and things looking the same, which is not the case at all. I know for those of us who played Metroid 2 Return to Samus back in the day, a lot of the areas looked exactly the same, and it was very easy to get lost. That's not the case here with Gato Roboto. The locations are extremely varied. They're super detailed as far as the drawings go. Obviously, there's not a lot in terms of color here, but you'll never have trouble differentiating between areas, and they're just all fun to explore. The game is just so well put together. It's just a fully realized, fun Metroidvania game. It's just so enjoyable to explore and see what's around the next corner, and every area has its unique feeling and vibe, and it's just a blast, really. It just puts a smile on my face the whole time I'm playing. Since you are playing as a cat in a mech suit, obviously there's some humor in the game as well. That comes from some enemy dialogue. It also comes from just some of the situations that the cat is put into. But as I said earlier, there's story elements you might pick up on along the way, and some other stuff you might have to hunt down. And there's some serious stuff in there too, which I'm not going to spoil. There's an interesting story. It's one element of the game that I didn't think would be there, and is. The story has some unique twists to it, and there's still some humor involved in the overall story. But without spoiling things, there's definitely some more serious notes and some interesting things to think about. And there's definitely a tale being told that perhaps goes in a direction you might not expect, or at least early on you don't expect. Yeah, the pieces come together as you're going, obviously, but I was pleasantly surprised to see that there's somewhat of an interesting story here. As I said earlier, there's plenty of stuff to collect that you need in order to progress, but there's other stuff like health upgrades, and there's cassette tapes that you can get that will unlock different visual styles. So you'll have palette swaps, basically. But again, they're just two-tone approaches to what you've seen in all the other trailers. I played black and white most of the time, but there's other color schemes in there too, and each cassette you get unlocks a new color scheme. There's like more of a Game Boy style theme and a Virtual Boy style theme, and I think there's one called Urine, and there's one called Coffee, and a whole bunch of different visuals or themes in there. It doesn't change the actual, graphics. It just changes the color. So hopefully you can settle on one that you enjoy. You'll have to hunt it down first, and it's always fun to see what ones you collect. But I really appreciate the visuals. I know they're not going to be everyone's cup of tea. I know a lot of people are upset with so many games using pixel graphics, but that's not anything that ever bothers me. And I really, truly appreciate a game that does a lot with a little. And this game takes more modest approach to its pixels, but they're so well animated. Everything is so well animated, moves so smoothly. It's really impressive. I really, really, really like the visual style. I love Gato Roboto, top to bottom. Absolutely love the game, but there is one element I think is above and beyond, and that's the soundtrack. This game has such an amazing atmospheric soundtrack. It's got a voice and vibe that is unbelievable. It really, you would think the game would be just silly overall because you're a cat in a mech suit, but that's not the case with the soundtrack. It makes you feel like you're on another world. The best way I can describe it is it's like, it's obviously influenced by the sounds of Super Metroid, and it gives me like a feeling of that mixed with a feeling of Earthbound soundtrack. There's just, I don't know what else to say about it, but holy moly does the soundtrack really elevate the game to a completely different level. I couldn't get who did the soundtrack from the credits because Doinksoft made the game and there's just 3 team members and it doesn't say specifically what they did, so I snooped around on Twitter. I think the composer is Britt Brady, and I went to see if he has a SoundCloud, and he does, and it fits in with the music in the game. Oh my god, this game needs a soundtrack released separately because it's just so good. It's not something you're gonna like put on when you're driving a car and like dance along to it, but it's just such a vibe. I mean, there's movies and games that have soundtracks that just heighten the experience overall. Stuff like Blade Runner's soundtrack really does a lot for that movie. And plenty of other games have soundtracks that really deepen the experience, and Gato Roboto is one of them. The soundtrack, I'm so excited for you guys to play the game in general, but the soundtrack, I cannot wait to see what you have to say about it. I was running through Gato Roboto fairly quickly, at least I think it was quick, and I did my first run through of the game in just under 3 hours, and I was trying to be pretty good with getting secrets and stuff like that, and I think it said I found like 85 or 86% on my first run through, so I certainly missed things. And there's reason to go back and collect those. Also, the game has, it's not a challenging game, like it's not a super difficult game. You're gonna die a couple times because of some tricky areas, and there's some very cool boss fights in there too that will certainly challenge you as you go on. They ramp up in a great way. The early ones are kind of easy, and then some later ones are gonna really test you a bit, but it's your standard boss battle stuff. You learn the routine, and you go back in and try again, and you do much better your second time and your third time, whatever it may be. But they're fun. They're just entertaining, and there's a story element to those boss battles as well that I don't want to spoil. So hopefully you enjoy that aspect as well. But yeah, not a super challenging game by any way, shape, or form, but as I said earlier, it's just fun to play. I really didn't have anything to complain about with Gato Roboto the entire time until the very, very, very end. So, you know how games will do that thing where it's like, do you want to return? Because this is the point of no return, so if you're going to do it, go do it now. And I was like, this is good for my first run through. And I went and finished the game, and that was that. And I went and loaded my save file, and I don't know that you can like go back to that point. And I don't. Here's what I think: when a game says that, you know, if you want to go back and collect stuff, you go. But if not, you go finish the boss, and that's that. And then when you go back into the game, it takes you back to that last save point, and then you can maybe go around and explore. But here, unless I'm missing something, it puts you in a spot where you can't go back at all. It's an area completely separate from the rest of the game, and I don't know if I'm missing something. I wandered around. It's a very small area. I'm not going to talk about it in detail because it's spoiler related, but I can't see anything to do there. So again, I don't know if I'm missing something or not, but it is kind of disappointing that you can't go back in and pick up from that last save. So there's a word of warning for you. Unless I am missing something, when the game asks you if you want to go back, and if you're looking to get like 100% completion, then go do that, because I have a feeling the game's ending changes based on that. That's just a hunch. I don't know for sure. I'm going to have to go through it all over again, unless somebody tells me that they've found a way for me to do something different once you play the game. But I just get a hunch that something different happens. I could be wrong, but now you have your word of warning. So when that message pops up, make sure you go back and do everything you want to do. There are plenty of games on the Switch eShop when it comes to indie titles that are fantastic, super fun, really enjoyable, well worth your time and money. But then there's like the upper echelon of indie titles on Switch, and I think Gato Roboto 100% deserves to be in there. I'm putting it up in like the Celeste area for me, which anybody who follows Go Nintendo or watches our videos or listens to the podcast knows that Celeste is one of my top tier favorite Switch games, hands down. And Gato Roboto, I would say, is not as good as Celeste, but it's up there, man. It's just so well put together, top to bottom, fantastic experience. Other than that ending, I can't think of anything negative to say at all. I had such a good time playing this game. It's just, I knew it was going to be a good game, but it's so much better than I expected. So I'm really, really excited for you guys to check this one out. Don't let it fall in the cracks of the eShop. Hopefully people are paying attention to this one. It's got a good publisher behind it that has had a lot of luck on the Switch eShop so far, so I'm sure Devolver Digital is going to spread the word. But I'm hoping that because it's a cat in a mech suit, it's going to get people's attention if it hasn't already. So I don't even know what else to say. It's a fantastic game. I highly recommend it. Well worth my time. I can't wait to go back in. Super excited to see what you guys think. And hopefully you enjoyed as much as I did.